Okay, hi everybody. It's Michael and Julie again from Solas Inspirational Chats, and we're absolutely delighted this St. Patrick's weekend to be having a conversation with Kathleen McGowan, world famous author, a wonderful soul altogether who has enlightened us on a lot of things too. And we thought it'd be really nice to sit and chat with her and let her talk to us a little bit about who she is and what she does. We're fans, big fans, and Julie vouched for that. And her books, which we'll get her to mention, are absolutely fantastic.
Yes, as I mentioned to Catherine earlier, I'm trying to contain my excitement because it's not often I get a chance to meet someone whose books I've read and I admire and respect you greatly. So Céad Míle Fáilte, thank you so much for connecting with us from Egypt. You don't need to introduce yourselves to us, but there may be one or two people in the world that haven't heard about you. So please tell us about yourself so that our viewers can get an understanding of how magnificent you are and your work is.
Oh, you're so kind. Good agat. Thank you. So I am an author. I continue to write a series of historical fiction books, which are focused on the spiritual accomplishments of women of the last 2,000 years. And the book which launched that, which has been my 30-year obsession, is a book about Mary Magdalene. So that first book was called The Expected One. And it was very much about my journey into France to discover who Mary Magdalene really was versus who we had all been told she was for such a long time, and to really dig into the deeper aspects of her spiritual importance, which is, I think, even greater for us to understand now than it has ever been.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, we would be of the same opinion. The Expected One came to us, and then of course we read the rest of the trilogy, and we reread them, and every time we read them, there's something fascinating. And we were in a shard there 2 weekends ago, and you know, with the Book of Love and that, and just the way the whole thing just blends together is incredible.
It really So the second book, The Book of Love, is the one that I really consider my magnum opus. That's the Expected One, of course, is the book that launched everything, and it's important because it brings people into the ideas. But the Book of Love is really the expansion, right? The Book of Love is really where we start digging into the real issues about, you know, the idea of the way of love and what it is, and how Mary Magdalene brought it to Europe, and how it has been protected in Europe for the last 2,000 years, and how people like us and you and me and a lot of conscious people out there are trying very hard to support this way of love being our way now.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And one of the magical places that you write about in your books, and we bring groups to also, is Montsegur. And tomorrow I was reading, it's the Declaration of the Church of Love, again, because on the 16th of March, is it 1244? There was sadly, yes. Well, it was genocide, as you wrote in your books. And I love the way you're so hard-hitting in your books, because you tell the truth. And then when the truth resonates with people like us who read your books and people around the world, there is this draw, this knowing, this understanding that, yes, this is the truth. And then people want to go to Montsegur and go to the south of France. And that's why we loved your books, because anytime we take groups, we say, please read these books. So there's a lot of people are going to be absolutely delighted to tune in and listen to this podcast and listen to your voice.
Oh, well, I hope so. And, you know, as you know, taking people to these sites is so important, because it really comes alive when you're there. It's one thing to read about it, and it's important to read about it, but that land there holds so much of the truth and the energy and the power of the people. And what I always say to people is, terrible things happened to the Cathars. It was genocide and the first mass burnings in history, and terrible butchery against these peaceful, beautiful people. But the magic of places like Montsegur and Minerve, places where the Cathars were in large numbers. And I think that you'll agree with me on this, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. I feel that those places hold the energy and the space of how the Cathars lived, and not of how they died. And that's why I think it's so important to bring people there, so they can really understand the essence of who these people were.
Yeah, but I'd agree totally. You know, yes, when we bring people to the likes of Montsegur, we show them where the funeral pyre was, but we go up, we don't spend much time there. We do a prayer there, and then we go up to the Pog and we sit and we let people explore. And the interesting thing is, when I do meditations, when you go through the castle and sort of go right out towards the cliffs, there's a crop of rocks there. To me, that was my seat way, way back. And when we brought a group 2 years ago, I said to them, I've got to bring you out, show you, this is the place I go on my meditations every time. And the eagles fly underneath, and it's magic. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. And 3 other people raced me to it because they reckon they also were sitting there at some stage in history.
They know who they are. They will be listening to this, Kathleen, and they will fight.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a fight over
I have a up there too, and there is something. And my kids, my sons, I have adult sons now, but they've all grown up coming to Montsegur with me and climbing up, and they all say the same thing. There's nothing like sitting up there in the peace of that place and listening to like the cowbells in the distance and watching the eagles. And there's something about it that is so pure and so powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it feels like home.
Yes.
It feels like home.
It really does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it is. It is. I'm getting goosebumps too. Oh, we could talk all day about Montsegur, Kathleen, but I'd love you to touch a little bit about your connections with, we call Ireland Éire. We go back to the original name, not Angerland, Ireland. But I know in your books you spent some time, was it in the north of Ireland?
So in my early stages, in fact, it was, Ireland is such a huge part of my life. My mother's family was from Sligo.
Oh, okay.
And so I grew up with a very profound sense of my Irishness, but I was a journalism major. And when I was 21 years old, I had an internship opportunity to go into the north and do some reporting. And this was right after the hunger strike. So it was a very, very intense time to be in the north. And I was based in London, but then I would go back and forth. I had places, they would embed me in certain places in Belfast, myself and another young woman, we were there together. And it was, it was a huge education. And part of the education was about what is truth, and the realization that there are very different versions of the truth on all sides of this issue. And that really, I was very naive and I was very young. So it was really shocking for me to see that I could attend an event and then read about it the next day in the newspapers. And it was absolutely not what happened. I mean, that didn't happen. I was in the middle of it. And so this sort of, young fledgling journalist who was, I was so committed to the truth. And realized, the truth is going to have to really fight to get out. So it took me on this sort of journey of what does that mean? And then what did that mean historically? And, if we can't get the truth today, what was it like years ago and centuries ago when only certain people, had the capacity to commit history to paper? When history is written by the winners, right?
Yeah.
And certainly not by sort of the poor and the average people. And so that took me to the next level, which is how women were written out and how so many places women were scapegoated if they were included in the histories at all. And that was really sort of what launched my world. So in the expected one, Maureen is a writer. So people always ask me, is the character of Maureen you? She's not me, but she experiences, there's a little bit of me in here. There's a lot of me in her, but a number of the things that she experiences are things that I experienced as well. And so I wanted to sort of use that character to show people what it was like to be on this journey of awakening to a complete new truth. Yeah. And in the book, Maureen writes a book, because she's an author, and the book is called Her Story. And she writes a book telling the truth about all these historical women who had been maligned and misunderstood, when in fact, that was the original book that I was writing. Mm-hmm. So that's based on the fact that I started writing that book. And then when I went to France in 1995 to do the research on Mary Magdalene, the whole world just changed for me. Once I got to the south of France, it was, it was like Dorothy opening the door to Oz. Everything was in Technicolor, and the whole world looked different. And I was Alice in Wonderland, and everything just changed. And I became obsessed with this story that has been so important and so lost of who Mary Magdalene really was.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
yes.
it's
Oh, well,
fabulous.
the magic is in your books, and that's why it's actually a tremendous privilege to be able to talk to you now today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, and we find just in relation to what you're talking about, the rise of the divine feminine here in Era is really, really in everybody's face, and the fact that they've given St. Bridget's Day a festival. Now we talk about Breed, the goddess, the Celtic goddess, as opposed to who was morphed into the saint by the Christian Church or Catholic Church. But the fact that it's now getting to the stage where Patrick has been pushed slightly aside, which is no harm. And when all the truth eventually comes out, and Bridget is, she's there, she's up in front. We were down at St. Bridget's Well there on the 1st of February for Involog, which obviously is a Celtic festival as well. And to see the whole town of Kildare is lit up, and every shop you go into has information, has storyboards, has everything. It's incredible. And as a man who I've spent a lot of time in France growing up, it's wonderful to see that the feminine is actually being given the place she deserves, not to the detriment of the divine masculine, but in unison with the divine masculine, which I think is very, very important. It has to be the balance,
It has to be. It is all about the unison. It is about the balance. And that's the thing that I'm really emphatic about when I wrote the Book of Love, is that it's all about the balance. But I think that the thing that I'd sort of like to leave with here is that we're in a very challenging time in our history in the Western world right now. And I'm American, so clearly it's a very difficult time to be an American. And what Mary Magdalene brings to us that I think is so important right now is she brings us a model of compassionate feminine leadership. And we see this in her gospel. We see it in the gospel in this beautiful moment in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, when the male apostles immediately following the crucifixion are in disarray and they're upset and they are worried and they're scared and they're saying, if they did this to him, they're going to do this to us. And we don't want to do that. And she is the one who steps forward, says, my brothers, I think she probably also said my sisters, because I'm pretty sure there were girls in the room too. But she steps forward and becomes the sort of comforter in chief and puts her arms around everybody and says, we've got this. We're here for this. We signed up for this and he prepared us for it. And now we're going to go out and we're going to do this together.
Yeah.
And in that moment, she really brings everybody back up. She brings everyone back to the purpose, which is the light and which is the love and the things that they're going to go out there and teach. And my favorite line in that gospel is that she turns their hearts to the good. And that's good with a capital G. And as you know, we see that over and over again in the way of love, in the way of the Cathars, who are the good men and the good women. May we all have our hearts turned to the good with a capital G.
Absolutely, yeah, lovely,
Beautiful.
absolutely
Well,
lovely.
Garamila Mahagat, Kathleen, it's just been a joy listening to you. And thank you so much for your time, because we realize you're in Egypt and you're a busy, busy lady. I'm going to put all your details in the description so people can reach out and buy your books, because we've read so many of them and we think they're actually tremendous. So Garamila Mahagat, and the blessings of St. Patrick to you and to your beloved husband. And thank you so much for your time.